So, finally, your will and determination to come to Ahmedabad has fructified, and AMA takes great pleasure in welcoming you to this very special program on face-to-face with achievers of excellence. AMA has always stood forever in the pursuit of excellence, and we felt that an interaction, in fact, a face-to-face, rather a heart-to-heart interaction is what I would refer to, was very important because you have made India proud globally. Friends, today it is difficult, being here in IIM, and of course he must be thrilled because he has his happy memories of the days here. If there could be, we have seen icons from business, industry, profession, icons from the film world, from the theater, but if there was to be an icon, if there was to be a brand from the world of sports commentators, and more particularly cricket, I think today globally we are proud of one name, and that is this fine achiever who is with us here today. He is undoubtedly India's leading cricket broadcaster and dominant television personality, but we felt we wanted you, sir, to share with our audience here, our members, and particularly the youth at AMA, your vision of how excellence could be achieved. We are also happy that we are having this program under the Rajiv Vastupal AMA Achievers Academy, because this academy also symbolizes this message of achievement. Mr. Rajiv Vastupal, our Vice President who promoted this academy, is himself a great achiever. And as it is said, good, better, best. Never let it rest till your good is better and your better is best. Sir, having started at the young age of 19 as an AIR commentator, you have risen to dizzy heights. I think it made history when ESPN decided to have the first 2-year contract when they launched the channel with Harshaji. BBC has been patronizing him for more than 8 years in a row. He has received, I think if I were to name those awards galore, it would take time. The number of shows that he has done, they are also phenomenal. But what is most important is, very recently he was awarded the Indian Television Academy Award for the Best Sports Presenter and Commentator. He featured in the BBC World in its series Face to Face on Young Achievers, and Outlook rated him as one of the 8 people who have changed the way their profession is perceived. Sir, how excellence is not a skill, it is an attitude. I think only referring to your yesterday's Express article where you said that Australia could look to August what India did in March, and you said that it all begins in the mind. And I think that contains a great message. You have not just been a commentator, you have been a great motivator. Ladies and gentlemen, let us very warmly and proudly welcome Mr. Harsha Bhogle. Please. After his presentation, a tete-a-tete with him. Thank you very much for holding on with patience. We know how much he has also borne with us today. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry everyone had to wait that long. It's very embarrassing for me. I was sitting on a runway thinking, would people wait for me? And secretly I was hoping people wouldn't, because then I wouldn't have to feel embarrassed by it all. But on the way I was told something that very ironically made me feel good. So I now have something in common. I may not quite have the intellectual largesse of Mr. C.K. Prahlad, but I have something else in common with him. We both get late on flights and come to these functions late. So while I may not quite have anything else in common with the great man, at least there's something else. There's just one other thing. I'm a little embarrassed by, I sometimes don't quite know where to look when people stand in front and say nice things about me. Most of those are come out of biodatas, but Mukesh bhai, please, the word sir is something I'm not used to, because I've got professors sitting here in front of me. They were more entitled to that. Mr. Bhogle was always my father. Even now people say Mr. Bhogle and look around to see if my dad's behind me. But I'm always Harsha, so I've always been that. In fact, when I first got my admission letter to this place, because in Gujarat, Harsha doubles up as a girl's name as well, my admission letter actually was addressed to MS Harsha Bhogle. And I wrote back to the SAC coordinator here saying, I don't know how many hearts I'm breaking, but there's a guy coming up, fellas. Anyway, so thank you very much. I'm not sure I'm quite the perfect person to sit here and talk about excellence. I'm only a sports broadcaster, and there's very often life shows up the littleness of what you do, and what's happened in Mumbai in the last 3 or 4 days shows up the littleness of cricket in our lives, and people who sit in front of a camera and talk about cricket, which is really all that I do. But I must tell you something related to what Mukesh bhai said. I was in Amritsar very early in my career once, and I saw this banner which tended to follow me around everywhere I went, and it said, Harsha brings Varsha. So it's something I've got used to, and you won't believe this. Today when I called up Jet Airways to ask if my flight was on time, the girl at the other end said, thank you for calling Jet Airways Varsha here. And I said, here we go again. I must confess, I'm a little gauche at most times, but I have a feeling of inadequacy while standing. By the way, if you're standing, there's lots of room on the steps. So please feel free. I'll feel more at home if you sit on the steps, because that's what I did quite often. So don't worry. I have a great feeling of inadequacy standing here, because to me, I came to IIMA, and if you'll pardon me just a couple of minutes to talk about IIM Ahmedabad, because that's something that's very, very special to me. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. I was not sure what I was getting into. I came from a very soft engineering course. I didn't know what I was getting into when I came here. And in my first 4 or 5 months, I was filled with awe. Believe me, till I came in here, I thought getting into IIM Ahmedabad would be the biggest thing I ever did in life. In my first 6 months, I realized that getting out was probably going to be bigger than getting in. And I remember at the end of my first term, and I'm waiting to meet Professor Dholakia, because he gave me a D in my eco paper, luckily the only one I got, and entirely justifiable, because I don't know what I wrote. I met Professor T.V. Rao that evening, and we were just coming out of the NR, and he took one look at me. He knew my mother, so I was always at my best behavior with him. And he said, are you all right? And I said, no, actually, I don't think I am. But I had a great sense of awe about coming to IIM Ahmedabad. But it did something else to me. As a PGP1, IIM Ahmedabad was terrible. It was terrible for me, not that the institute was terrible, it was terrible for me because I didn't know what to do here. I came here and I thought everybody in the world is better than me at everything in the world. And quietly when I sat down in my room, I realized that was true, which made it even worse. My second year here was still, in all the years of my life, the finest year I've ever had. Because I left this place aware of the fact that for all the inadequacies I perceived in myself, IIM Ahmedabad could accept me for who I was. And that was a huge feeling. Somebody suggested, why doesn't this guy become a combo captain? And I said, wow. And by the time I left, there was a girl who thought I was okay enough to want to spend the rest of her life with me. And till today, my father thinks that's the best thing I did at IIMA. I out of respect, I don't disagree. Right. But I learned a lot here, and I always feel very emotional coming back here. And to do so in an auditorium like this, which didn't even exist then, but in an audience like this, I'm feeling a bit small, so just stay with me for a while. I'll warm up in course of time. I've even done that with Sidhu, so I can do that today. I'll talk not so much about excellence as I have had the opportunity, but from what I've seen around me, and over the last 2 or 3 years, through the opportunity that's been afforded to me by my profession to speak to some of India's top corporates on learnings from sport. I don't claim to know corporate India very well, but I do talk about learnings from sport. And while talking about learnings from sport, I also follow one of the earliest advice I ever got, which was to keep my mouth shut and my ears open. And you can see how well I followed that. And so I'm going to talk about excellence from all that I've allowed to come into my system over the years. The first, of course, is a perennial debate between what's more important, the end or the path. And I can understand why a lot of people believe that the end is crucial, because the end is often a driver of ambition. We always set ourselves these result goals and we want to get there at all costs. And the end is something that we look up to. It gives us that goal, it gives us the vision. And that end can sometimes be the driver of ambition. And heaven knows, most people come to this institute and most people go out of this institute, and a lot of people who are also part of the AMA are people with great ambition, and ambition needs a driver. That's what I keep telling my son, though he doesn't believe in it. But ambition needs a driver, and sometimes the ends are in themselves the drivers of those ambition. But I've discovered over the years, and it's happened to me, and I've seen that with a lot of people in sport. I'm not quite sure it happens in corporate life, but I've seen that in sport, especially in cricket, that having those kind of result goals, end goals, rather than journey or passage goals. When I say end versus path, I'm really talking journey versus destination. Most of us love the destination. As we grow older, as we see a little bit more of life, we realize it's a destination that counts for as much, if not more, than the journey. And I've discovered that the end at all costs attitude that pervades a lot of us these days is a source of great anxiety. It adds anxiety to our system. It adds more turbulence. One of the few things I remember from studying engineering was entropy. It adds to the degree of entropy in the system, the degree of turbulence in the system. Because the end starts to choke you after a while. Because if you can't get to the end, then getting to the end at all costs becomes so important that you forget that we need to exist for today as well. We're forever in search of that end. For me, at IIM Ahmedabad, that end was passing out with my head held high. And in my first year, I spent more time trying to figure out what grade I needed to get, rather than studying, which would have allowed me to get that grade in the first place. But I've also seen with a lot of young people that they set themselves these goals. They say, I must get 500 runs in this series, or I must score 300s in this series. And getting those 500 runs or getting those 300s then starts becoming, rather than an ambition, a great source of anxiety. And that can sometimes choke them. When Sandy Gordon, who was a psychologist at the University in Australia and worked with the Indian cricket team, met some of our youngsters, Yuvraj Singh told him he was getting very anxious about the fact that he wasn't scoring hundreds. And they worked together to give him a different set of goals. And he said, if you're batting at number 6, why don't you set your goal as being not out at the end of the innings and playing a winning role, rather than choking yourself by scoring hundreds? It does one other thing, and that is it provides, putting the result first, putting the end at all costs attitude, creates a temptation to do whatever it takes to win. And sometimes when we start to walk down that path of taking whatever it takes to win, we don't always check whether the path that we are following is the right one. It's fraught with danger. And too often we tend to go down that path. It's a classic question that presents itself here as well, isn't it? Of all the things, there are many things I admire about IIM Ahmedabad, but the thing that grates the most, not about this institute, but about the public perception of this institute, is what kind of salaries are students getting out of this place? I get the feeling that business schools and business newspapers are all that they care about IIM Ahmedabad is what is the highest starting salary, what is the average starting salary, and on a plot, if you plot a graph, where does 2005 starting salary compare with 2004? And where does it compare with 2003? And thank God, not where it compares with 1985. But we don't come here for a starting salary. That will be putting the end first. People come here to build careers. They don't come here to earn a starting salary. If you come here to earn a starting salary, you've already taken the first wrong foot in life. We come here to build careers. And I know of no human being in this world who's built a great career for himself and has thought, where's my next check coming from? And yet, there are people who go in search of that check, and by 35, 38, they're saying, hang on, did I do right? So next time someone comes from a newspaper and tells you, so what starting salary are you expecting? Please stand up to your full height and say, I don't care. Because honestly, if you're from IMA, you needn't care. But that's a classic situation, I think, of putting the ends before the journey. Say, I'm here to build a career. On one of my first tours to Australia, I was working my backside off. And honestly, I think the fastest path to excellence is to work your butt off. Not necessarily to work every day in office till 9 o'clock at night, but try and work as hard as you can and do the best you can. And I wanted to do cricket commentary. And the Australian Broadcasting Corporation would not pay me for it because I was the overseas broadcaster. And the convention is that the overseas broadcaster is paid by his station. My station was All India Radio. They didn't even know I was going. So there was no question of being paid by them. So I used to write 2 newspaper reports a day, one for the afternoon papers, one for the night paper. There used to be video magazines then. You know, you didn't have, it was still 91, 92. I mean, the World Wide Web was 5 years ago. That's how antique we're talking about. And so at the end of every test match, I'd write for a magazine. I'd get that translated into Marathi, write for a Marathi magazine. I'd do all this. But my biggest perk was I would host columns for the 3 cricket captains. And it gave me a great opportunity of meeting twice in every test match, of sitting with Alan Border for 15, 20 minutes. And he said something I tell every young Australian cricketer. He said, I always tell them, take care of the runs and the dollars will take care of themselves. And I think that's something every management student, or indeed every practicing manager, must frame and put up. The path to excellence is through runs, not through dollars. And I've seen too many examples of outrageously talented young Indian cricketers who chase the dollar, or given the way the dollar is going, maybe we should say chase the rupee because it's getting stronger, isn't it? Who chased the rupee and lost the runs. And I think in a sense, that to me is what excellence is about. Excellence is chasing your performance goals and letting the result take care of itself. In fact, in Australia, there are a lot of coaches now who are starting to say, make the process of achievement supreme and make the result irrelevant. The Australian cricket coach says that, the Australian swimming coach says that. And the idea being, you perfect the process of performance and don't allow the pressure of the result to choke your performance. And to me, that's a wonderful journey on the path to excellence. Because very often we have no control over what is coming our way. If you're a swimmer in lane 4, if you're an Olympic swimmer, you're on the last 8, right? It's the big day. Maybe there's Ian Thorpe, there's Grant Hackett on one side, there's the Dutch swimmer whose name I can never pronounce on the other side, and there's Michael Phelps on the other side. I'm making an admission here because every kid in my school quiz knows the name front and back and knows the coach and the coach's wife and the aunt as well. Now there's a swimmer in lane 4. The swimmer has got absolutely no control over what the swimmer in lane 5 is going to do. No control over what the swimmer in lane 1 is going to do. All he has control over is what he is going to do. If he keeps worrying about what the swimmer in the next lane is doing, then he is preventing himself from performing as well as he can. And they believe, and I believe from the little sport that I have seen, that matches are won or lost not because another team plays better, but because a team doesn't play as well as it can. And I have great faith in that theory of making the result irrelevant. Do the best you can and take what you take what you get. And actually, if you see what Australian sports scientists and managers are saying today, it's no different from what your grandmother told you. She told you, karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Don't worry about the fruit. And I think that is the path to excellence. And that's something I have seen. You know, it's funny that every time I've done something because I've loved doing it, and I said, I love doing this. Let me go and do it to the very best I can. You really can't do more than that. Do it to the very best you can. And I've got paid more than I think I should have. I never told them that, but I got paid more than I thought I should have. And every time I've told myself, yeah, this looks like easy money, let me do it. It hasn't happened, or something's gone wrong somewhere. And I keep getting this feeling that there's something telling me, listen, don't worry about the ends. Just do your job as well as you can. And that's something I've believed in for a long time. One of the other problems also of putting the ends before the means is this whole question of ethics. And the more you see in public life what's happening, the more you read the front pages of newspapers today, the more you wonder if that beautiful 6-letter word has been banned by people who have control over our lives. I remember being in this, one of the things I remember in my first year course was Professor Mote one day shutting the MSM1 course and talking to us for half an hour on ethics. I didn't score too well in MSM1, but that thing remained for a long time. And I think adherence to ethics allows you to put the end where it deserves to be and concentrate on the path. When we seek excellence, as I said, very often we seek excellence in results, but I'm convinced that excellence exists in the performance as well, even more so in the preparation. And great teams become great because they excel in their preparation. What you see on the ground is just the end result of all that's gone in before. And that is why they are telling themselves, set yourself performance goals, not result goals. When you set yourself performance goals, when you're batting in the nets, you're still trying to get better. In the nets, you can't score 122 from 108 balls, but you can still bat as well as you want, as well as you can. You can still learn to give every ball 100%. And that's something that I've discovered over the years, that if you give every moment 100%, and then wait for the next moment and say, you know what, this is the moment I wanted to give 100% to, and then the next moment turns up and you say, actually, this was the moment I really wanted to give everything I could, then you find that the little things in life that make the difference between good and great just happen. And sometimes we talk of more than 100%. A lot of my friends in cricket talk about giving 110% and 120%. Sometimes, nowadays even that's not good enough. It's almost like adding V's before VIPs these days. And they want to give 200%. And I tell them, and they don't understand, of course, I say, thank God you didn't meet Professor Mote. Because he would have come and prostrated himself in front of you and said, you cannot score more, you cannot do more than 100%. I tried telling them, I mean, if you had a 1 liter Pepsi bottle, can you fill 2 liters in it? So why are we unhappy with 100%? I mean, we can't give more than 100%, but if we can give 100% every time, then you really can't do more than that. And that is what performance goals are talking about. You give 100% and take the result as it comes to you. And that's what the Quran says as well, doesn't it? That the Lord will help those that give their best every single time, not those that crave something for themselves. And if you give 100% every time and you lose, you can go to sleep aware that you gave your best. If it wasn't good enough, you take your hat off to your opponent and say, well done guys, you're better than me today. There's no shame in saying, well done, you're better than me. You want to beat your opponent, you will do everything it takes ethically to beat that opponent. But if the opponent is better than you, it's not a matter of shame. I mean, if I'm bowling to Adam Gilchrist and he hits me for 34 runs in an over, it's not a matter of shame, is it? But if you know to yourself that you've given 100%, then you sleep well. And say, I'll try harder and come back. That's what the great teams do. The not so great teams say we lost because of pollution, otherwise we could have given 100%. Or as the Indian hockey team loves to say, we lost because of the umpires. Let me tell you some of the things we learned in mathematics when we were studying early on was A union B and A intersection B. Indian hockey and excellence, if Indian hockey is A and excellence is B, A intersection B is a null set. And the reason is when we lose, we seek excuses. Excellence never seeks excuses. People, tell me one person who sought excellence who gave an excuse saying, I would have been good, but. The moment someone says, I would have been good, but, it means you're trying to assign the blame for your poor performance on someone else. And that means you're not great already. I mean, Australia came to India in 98, they lost. They lost. I never heard an Australian saying, shit, there was too much pollution. They said, we weren't good enough, we'll come back and try again. 2001, they came close to winning. They said, we'll try again, and they won in 2004. So, to me, excellence is a series of 100%. And I've found that when I cut my teeth in live television. I got into live television without being aware of what live television was, which helped me actually, because I see a lot of people who are told so many things about live television freezing before the camera. I had no idea what live television required me to do. So in a very funny kind of way, I normally love to be prepared, but in a very funny kind of way, being unprepared helped me. And then I found I had to do a fair bit of recorded television programs. And let me tell you, once you've done live television, once you've got that adrenaline flowing in you, once you start to live with the idea that I cannot go wrong, I'm not allowed to go wrong. And then all of a sudden, when you do recorded television, you say, hang on, this is Mickey Mouse, you know, because I can't go wrong here. And the moment you allow yourself, the moment becoming wrong falls into your possibility map, then you do go wrong. And I found that so many times. When I was doing recorded television, I said, yeah, I mean, it's okay. What's the big deal? If I'm wrong, I'll just do it again, right? And one day I did 20 takes. And I said, shit, even Fardeen Khan won't take 20 takes. I mean, I know he tries to act as well, but... This is a movie with Fardeen Khan and Zayed Khan. I'm not going to miss that. I hope it's not a serious movie because I'll be laughing my head off. Anyway, they're trying hard. It's good for them. One of the other things I learned is never grudge anyone their success. Because if you grudge someone their success, they'll grudge yours. So never grudge people their success. But I found that when I was doing recorded television, I was nowhere near as confident or as secure or as alert as when I was doing live television. And I told myself, hang on, this is ridiculous. Because if I'm allowing myself to take more than one take, I'm holding up everybody else. I'm wasting other people's time. I'm wasting tape. I'm wasting cameraman's time. I'm wasting everyone's time. And I told myself, I will never do recorded television again. When I do recorded television, I will treat it as live television. And everything I do will be live television. And I found that just by maximizing that moment and giving 100% even to recorded television, I found I was able to approach recorded television with the same intensity with which I was doing live television. And it helped me enormously. On our school quiz, we do 5 a day. We do 5 episodes a day. And I mean, we got to do 61 in a row. That's the other thing I want to talk about. When you've got to do 61 programs back to back without a break in between, how can you get excited about doing number 39? You know, you get in and say, well, I've done 39. You go back into that old makeup room where the upholstery hasn't been changed since you started doing the quiz when you were younger and had more hair on your head. And you say, I've done 39. And you look up and say, 22 more. And you say, no, 40th was the only one I ever wanted to do. And then you're able to give 100% to that one. And then, don't worry, it's okay. You know, if you've been in cricket and cell phones have had a very deep relationship over the years. So don't worry. It's all right. Don't worry. So feel free. Don't worry. There's the other thing you learn when you do live television. If you've got people standing 4 feet away from you saying nasty things about you, and you've still got to look into that camera and smile and say, you know what, this is the best place I wanted to be. So don't worry. It won't affect me. So I found that I could add value to recorded television by giving even recorded television 100%. And this little pride, this giving 100% in everything, when I got into writing, when I got into journalism first, and I've never actually worked in a newspaper, but when I got into journalism, I found that there were a lot of people who'd come through the copy desk, where they started off as sub-editors and then got into going on cricket tours, whereas I had come from advertising. And I'd come from advertising, a school which says that every word that you write must count, because it's not going away, it's meant to sell a product. So unless every word is important, your writing is not good enough. And I was in awe. I was in awe of the copywriters in Rediffusion. I'd go up there and I'd just look at them like I might look at a Gavaskar or Vishwanath. I was in awe of them. And I found on one of my first tours, someone I knew for a while, we were just sitting and talking, and I said, yeah, this is what I wrote today. And he said, yeah, I just sent some shit. I said, why? He said, just one day, the whole tour. I said, didn't your name go on that article? He said, yeah, so what? I said, but if your name goes on that article, how can you send something that you don't agree with? Or that you don't think is the best you could do? And he looked at me as if I'd come from Mars. Or these days you can say, he looked at me as if I came from Discovery's space shuttle. But because I came from advertising, where I found a lot of people who are outstanding at what they did, it helped me in my career in journalism as well. And you never know who's reading what, you never know who's watching which program. And that's the great joy of giving 100% every single time, because you don't know who's watching what. In our profession, you never know who's watching which program and where a big new opportunity is going to come from. I mean, one of the lines that people throw at me most often is something that I just quoted as a throwaway line, and I said, what have I said here? But you don't know, as I said, who's watching. I was comparing Sunil Gavaskar and Sachin Tendulkar, and I said, as India's economy changed, Tendulkar is a product of a new economy, whereas Gavaskar was a product of a licensed, socialist-driven economy. And I said, he batted like he had bank deposits, whereas Tendulkar bats like he's playing the equity markets. And and all of a sudden, people said, wow, and I didn't mean, it wasn't prepared, I didn't mean to say it, but people suddenly said, hang on, this guy's got more than just cricket in him. That's why, if you're willing to give 100% every single time, you never know who's listening to what. The third point I wanted to make was, in life, if you seek excellence, you must always seek people who are better than you. Sometimes when you reach a level of excellence, and if you're not secure, if you're insecure of what you've achieved, then you always surround yourself with people who are lesser than you. And the moment you surround yourself with people who are lesser than you, you stop growing. So for a purely selfish reason, if not for anything else, you must always surround yourself with people who are better than you. Because then you learn and you grow. And they may not be better than you at your profession. People might say, hang on, this guy's done, 70, 75 test matches, 371 day international, who's he going to work with who's better than him? That's nonsense for a start anyway. But you might watch a cameraman work and see the great discipline and excellence he brings to his job. And you say, wow, man, can I be in my profession what this cameraman is to his profession? And believe me, when I started out in this whole television profession, I had no heroes. I had no heroes and I had no one to look up to. In radio broadcasting, because we had a tradition of radio broadcasting in India, a tradition that we have killed and we are currently at the moment burying as deep as we can, you had someone to look up to. But in television, I had no one to look up to. So I'd sort of hang around the crew, And I later discovered that some of these these very dandy presenters never hung around with the crew, with the rigger. Those riggers used to have big leather gloves and they had grease all over them, and I'd look at them and say, wow, these guys are working their backside off. And we had a mid-wicket cameraman called Johnny de Villiers from South Africa. In those days, we only had one mid-wicket camera. We still do, even now. There's only one mid-wicket camera. He had to, while the ball was being bowled, had to check the no ball. Because the no ball is best viewed from mid-wicket camera. This was before the cameras were locked off. Before you had the 4 locked off cameras to check that. As soon as the ball was bowled, and can you imagine how quick it is when a fast bowler is bowling? On television, you have no idea of speed. Whether it's Formula 1 or a fast bowler, you get no idea of speed on television. He's got to check the no ball, and then straight away he's got to move to the batting crease. Luckily, you don't get stumpings with people who are bowling with no balls, but assume a spinner's bowling. He's got a little bit more time, but he's got to go from the no ball straight to the crease to check if there's a stumping. If a ball's been hit, he's got to follow the ball, and then promptly come back to see if there's a chance of a run out. And sometimes, and this actually happened once, where someone threw the ball to the striker's end, and there's a run out chance there, and the wicketkeeper promptly realized there's a run out chance at the non-striker's end. Now, this guy's the only one. So he's gone there for the run out. He's quickly realized that the run out is there. He's quickly gone there so that he can check if he can get the run out there. And I just looked at that thing and said, shit, this man's a genius. And I asked him afterwards, and he said, you know what? He said, I've never missed a stumping in my life. I said, to me, that is excellence. These were my heroes. Because I didn't have broadcasting heroes to look up to, my heroes were technicians. My heroes were the replay editors. I remember long before television moved entirely to discs. Today there are no tapes. Today in the entire edit suite or in the entire engineering section, There are no tapes at all. Everything works on discs now. And long before that, you had tapes. And everything had to be logged. So I remember a game in Toronto during the Sahara Cup where Vinod Kambli hit a boundary. And I said, you know what, two games ago, he got out playing exactly the same shot. And today he's hit it a couple of feet that way and he's got a 4. So I hit the lazy button that we have. You know, when we speak into the microphone, but it doesn't go out, it only goes to the producer. You probably hear that sometimes when you don't press that button well, and you hear commentators saying things they shouldn't say. And I said, you know, can you pull out his dismissal from the last match? Within a minute, I heard the director saying, okay, dismissal's ready, I've put both shots back to back to you. And I said, the guy who pulled that out must be a genius. You know what all he did in that 1 minute? He pulled out his logs. On his log, it said, Vinod Kambli dismissal, tape 4, 24.32, or whatever it was. Pulled out tape 4, put the tape 4 in the machine, queued it up, set it up on one machine, took the replay of this shot, set it up on another machine for him to play back to back because I asked for it. I said, these are champions, and my heroes were all technicians. And that is where this great desire for excellence came in. And I thought to myself, I must be as good in my profession as these people are in theirs. And sometimes when we start to reach a certain level, we surround ourselves with smaller people, or we start hating criticism. I don't know if you've seen that happening to a lot of people. Once you've reached a certain level, you don't like criticism. And, I mean, what is the worst thing that will happen if people criticize you? They say you did something wrong. If you do something wrong, you should be game enough to say, sorry, I did it wrong, before someone else says it was wrong. And it's always very important on the path to excellence to have people around you who will tell you whether you're doing right or wrong. And in show business, that is the toughest thing of all. I don't know if some of you picked up something that Simone Vaughan said recently. She said, my husband Shane lives in a rarefied bubble. He said he has no idea what is right and wrong because he lives in a rarefied bubble. There's nobody in Shane Vaughan's life to tell him, listen buddy, what you're doing is wrong. On the path to excellence, you'll find that there's a lot of people who want to say nice things about you. And in course of time, you'll start to build a highway between your ears and let people you don't know just come and say, wow, you're very good. Smile and let that go away. You tend to remember when people say, you know what? Just watch out, you're stumbling a little bit. Well, I told Rahul Dravid once many, many years ago when he was a young man, and he told me the only two people interested in me getting married, my grandmother and you. Little did he know that I wanted that whole waiting, that queue around him to get released. Because every woman I met said, you know Rahul Dravid? And very innocently I said, you could know me as well, you know. Yeah. My wife was supposed to come with me and pulled out this afternoon because the flight was late. I said, never marry a fan. I said, I can't advise you anything about the way you bat. But for heaven's sake, don't ever marry a fan. Marry a girl who will tell you, listen, you're doing something wrong. Because only then will your marriage survive. You marry a girl who's telling you, listen, you're great, and you know, Rahul Dravid. You know, you can't marry someone who's marrying 22 hundreds. Or in Tendulkar's case, someone who's marrying 70 hundreds. So, he told me one day, he said, I remembered that when I was getting married. I said, I hope you remembered a few other things as well. but I think it's very important in life never to marry a fan. Because arrogance often comes in the way of excellence. It's one of the biggest stumbling blocks on the path to excellence. And I know a thing or two about that because I've been the greatest beneficiary of the arrogance of Indian cricket. Because the one question that has prevented Indian cricket and Indian cricketers from growing into human beings and therefore into better cricketers is how much cricket have you played? So everybody, even if whether you're a surgeon or a lawyer, you're always judged by that on the scales. It says, how much cricket have you played? And earlier it used to bother me a great deal. And after a while I said, hang on, anybody who says, how much cricket have you played, believes that that is the only thing that counts in the world. So I've got a great chance here. And I was able to succeed initially in my profession because I was willing to do what it took. And a lot of people weren't because they were cricketers. And so they had to be cricketers, right? It's like bit actresses in serials and movies who carry on this pretense of being stars when they actually can't afford to be stars. I met this actress once who said, you know, everyone thinks I make a lot of money. We were on a flight together sitting next to each other, which gave me about 25 dirty looks on that flight, I can assure you. And said, you know, everyone thinks that we're very rich. He said, we've got to keep up this facade of being glamorous, and sometimes we can't afford this facade. And it's a bit like that with cricketers as well. They've got to be seen to be cricketers, right? And so it helped me enormously. My first 3-4 years were entirely because of the arrogance of Indian cricket. And so I keep hoping that Indian cricket stays arrogant because it allows me to do well. But it's come in the way. A lot of our young Indian cricketers cannot think beyond cricket. And if they thought beyond cricket, they would get into the beautiful world. Expecting them to get into the world of a Narayan Murthy or an Azim Premji would be beyond them, to be honest. But they need to allow themselves to get into the world of Pete Sampras, of Lance Armstrong, of Tiger Woods, of Michael Jordan. But to them, cricket is the only thing that matters, and I think that prevents people from growing. And that's why CLR James said, what do they know of cricket who only cricket? And maybe a lot of you PGB2s, what do you know of management who only management know? A couple of other things that helped me. I don't know if that's relevant on the paths to excellence, but a couple of things that helped me, and I mentioned that on that program that you talked about, which Karan Thapar did, called Face to Face with Young Achievers. You know the word I loved most in that? Not face, not achievers, but young. Yeah? You crave what you lose, always. So I crave the words young and hair. But I told him that one of the things that worked for me was I was willing to be a non-striker. I was quite happy to be a non-striker. I played in a university team where I was nowhere near being the best player. But I wanted to be very good at something, and I knew I could not be very good. I could not be the best in batting. I knew I could not be the best in bowling too. I did enough of both to be in the side. But I loved fielding from the bottom of my heart. You know, I'd get up in the morning, and the sound I would imagine was not the ball coming off the middle of the bat. It makes a beautiful sound. It makes chick. Have you heard that sound? Not talk. When it goes talk, it means either you've got a bad bat or you can't bat. When it goes chick, it's a beautiful sound. But the sound I loved more than anything else was the ball hitting my palm. You know, when the ball hits the palm, it's exactly where it should when you're taking a difficult catch. And I'd imagine that sound. And I found that because I was the best fielder in the team, I became friends with everybody. Because when a bowler bowls a bad ball, when he bowls short outside the off stump, he closes his eyes and in his mind, he sees 4 runs going against his name in the scorebook. And if you can dive to your left and cut it off and keep it down to 1, you get the biggest grin on his face. Because you've saved him 3 runs. It doesn't count in yours. You don't go in the scorebook for that. He goes in the scorebook as 3 runs short. Or if you take a great catch, you take a brilliant catch, in the bowling analysis, it goes in the bowler's name. So by being very, very good at fielding, I was actually becoming the best friend of the bowler, and I was making myself invaluable to the team. And I found that when I batted, if I could get off the strike as quickly and as consistently as possible, I was actually doing a very good job for my team. Because I was building a partnership. And partnerships are the lifeblood of every innings. And I grew in course of time to bat at number 6. But when I started off, I'm batting 8 or 9. And at 8 or 9, and you're batting with number 5, everyone's sitting in the pavilion, they want number 5 to bat. And the moment number 8 takes a single and gets off the strike, they say, good, because now number 5 can bat. And I was part of a lot of partnerships, a lot of big partnerships where I didn't score much. But it added to my value to the side. And I was quite happy being non-striker. And then when I got into the commentary box, initially I tried to compete. It was the biggest mistake I made. I tried to compete because around me, everybody was asking me, how much cricket have you played? Everybody. It was like there were ghosts around every corner. I've written another 700 pages of Harry Potter on that. How much cricket have you played? And I said, I'll show them I understand cricket. And in the course of time, I said, no, I don't need to. And I discovered that if I could play non-striker in the commentary box, where I say, my job is in making Sunil Gavaskar look better. Can I make Jeff Boycott look better? Can I make Ravi Shastri look better? Then they will want to work with me, not with someone who's competing with them. And in trying to make them look better, I actually look better myself. And I found that the moment I started playing non-strike, I dropped my ego. Incidentally, let me tell you, in the world of excellence, if you have ego and anger on your side, you don't need an opponent. Because we've done 90% of the job towards ruining yourself anyway. And I said, I don't have an ego. What the hell? I've got the greatest job in the world. So I'll make them look good. And I found in making them look good, there was this sort of mid-50s lady I met in the Taj Bengal one day, lovely silvery hair. And she came and said, you know, Mr. Bogle, you always ask the questions that we want to ask. And I said, I think I'm doing the right thing. Because in the rarefied world of 20 centuries and 25 centuries, the common man gets left out. Sometimes the common man that allows cricket to work. So as an anchor, I said, can I, on my programs, make my guest feel as comfortable as possible? Because if my guest is comfortable, my guest will be relaxed. If my guest is relaxed, my guest will perform very well on the program. If my guest performs very well on the program, then my program looks good. If my guest is insecure because he's scared that I'm going to scream at him, then I'm not going to produce a good program. So sometimes by subjugating the self, and that's what a lot of cricket coaches and swimming coaches are saying, subjugate the self to achieve excellence. I don't know if that will work for someone who's head of sales or someone who's a medical rep, because that, I think, is one of the most difficult jobs in the world. I mean, we all make fun of medical reps, right? It's the most difficult job in the world. But I thought by subjugating the self, it actually worked for me. I didn't start off saying, I will subjugate the self, because that looks like it comes out of PGB2 class. But it worked for me, and maybe it'll work for you someday. A lot of us place a lot of emphasis on talent, don't we? I mean, we look at someone who's talented and say, wow, right? Talent does that to people. It dazzles, you know. Talent dazzles, and you look at talent and say, wow, I wish I could be like that. And yet you find that excellence is not about talent alone. In fact, a major part of excellence has nothing to do with talent. And in course of time, once you go beyond a certain level, ability or talent is the most useless virtue to possess. It's what you do with that talent that matters. And that's why Mukesh used a word that I love, attitude. Beyond a point, it is attitude that counts for far more than talent. Because talent breeds an ego. And talent never solves problems beyond a point. And I was fascinated by something that Sandy Gordon said when we were doing a program together. Because I had seen a lot of young cricketers, extremely talented, who the moment they faced a roadblock did not know what to do. Because they had never had to struggle to succeed. They always used their talent to succeed. I mean, Vinod Kambli is an example of that. The moment Courtney Walsh bounced him in Bombay, he was 22 years old. Was he? Yeah, he was 22 years old then. In 1994, he was 22 years old. Didn't know what to do, did not play a test match after that. His last test match was when he was 22 years old. Just did not know how to play the bouncing ball because talent had solved everything for him before. In the Australian Army, when they are, and this is something that doesn't come from sport, but it's something a sports scientist told me, that when they're building an elite core team, they look at your career record, your track record, and if you've never failed, they don't pick you. They don't pick you because they say, if this man experiences failure, will he know what to do? They pick people who failed and bounced back. And that is where your attitude comes through. And, I mean, let's look at excellence. What is excellence about? It's about being in the top 10% in your profession. I mean, I know I'm talking to people who want to be in the top 1%, but there are a lot of ordinary people around us around. So let's say top 10%. Is talent important when you get to be in the top 10%? I mean, everybody in the top 10% will have the same talent, right? So what's your USP? It's what you do with the talent that counts. And unfortunately in our sport, and I think in India as a nation, we're dazzled by talent a great deal. I found that beyond a certain time in sport, as indeed in broadcasting, that your work ethic and your attitude counts from far more than talent. I mean, Tendulkar is a prime example. The moment you say Tendulkar, if I asked you if you had one of those things that talk show hosts do, I'll give you a word and you give me a connecting word in one word. You say Tendulkar, people say talent, right? He played 55 games as a 14-year-old without a break. 55 days. He'd practice for 2 hours, play a game, practice 2 hours, fall asleep on the dining table. And do that 55 days in a row. That's attitude. We think, and this is something we talk about in our corporate lectures as well, where we advise against talent. When Tendulkar was born, it wasn't that this nurse picked him up and said, "Here, Mrs. Tendulkar, here's 70 hundreds for you." Yeah? It isn't Tendulkar's talent that's produced 70 hundreds. It's his work ethic, it's his attitude, and more than anything else, when he reaches the top, it's his passion to perform. And that counts for far more. The attitude and the passion counts for far, 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 far more than ability. Ability opens the first door. It might open the second door. It's not going to open the last door for you. Because the guy who's bowling the ball at you has got equal ability as you. He's not going to run up to bowl and say, "Oh, sorry, you're a genius. Sorry, I'll give you a simple ball." Which is what India's bowlers did in 1948 when they went to Australia. They were so much in awe that they said, "We are going to bowl to Bradman." It was understandable in those days. India was a different country. But they were in awe of bowling to Bradman. How were they ever going to get him out? And they didn't. And Bradman enjoyed himself. If you look at Bradman's record, actually, Bradman only ever played in 2 countries. And when Bradman playing at home in home conditions against a half-strength Indian team, see, he must have had a party for them every evening. It's also excellence, I think it's also about learning from mistakes. There'll be a lot of people in this room, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people in your learning academy as well, who are so driven that they think a mistake is a crime and that a mistake is a matter of shame. Let's be honest to ourselves, guys and girls, sorry. We guys are very limited in our view of the world. We're a bit like George Bush, but I can't say that openly. We keep saying guys all the time, and if you worked in sport all your life, then you sort of tend to go into the guy thing a little too much, which is sad for everybody. Deep down inside, you ask yourself, when you make a mistake, what's your first reaction? I hope nobody ever looks at me again, right? I'm going to tell you that mistakes can be your best friend. Because the more mistakes you make, the more you know what not to do. And excellence is as much about knowing what to do as knowing what not to do. And if you can be outstanding at knowing what not to do, then the road to what to do opens up before you, doesn't it? I tried telling that to one of my friends who was on the same dorm as me, and we stayed in touch afterwards. He was one of these IT freaks. And I was telling this, I said, this is my attitude about mistakes. I said, the more mistakes you make, the more you know what not to do. And he promptly extended the limits to infinity, as you tend to do, and said, therefore, the most successful guy is the one who only makes mistakes. Right? That would be a mathematical conclusion to it, wouldn't it? Every time I make a mistake, I learn. The more mistakes I make, the more I learn. If I only make mistakes, I only learn. Right? It doesn't quite work like that. But I've yet to meet a situation in life where you're not allowed to make a mistake. Everybody's allowed to make a mistake. It's the second or the third mistake that you're not allowed to make. You make the same mistake twice, thrice, then you lose respect. It's, when bowlers are planning how to get batsmen out, they look for weaklings and say, this guy gets out here all the time. It's because you get out there all the time that they're able to make a plan against you. But if you make a mistake and say, I will not make that mistake again because I know this is where I can go wrong, then you're starting to do very well. And I found it helped me enormously. I made a million mistakes. Honestly, I've made the most embarrassing mistakes on television. On live television, I've made some absolute bloomers. But I said, I won't make them again. Because every time I got to that situation, I said, hang on, buddy, last time you were there, you did that wrong. So it's almost as if little alarm bells go off in your mind. Every time you sit in front of a live camera and you're heading down a path, very often that path is with 40 seconds to go before ending a program asking Sidhu a question. You know you've made a mistake straight away. Because it won't end in 40 seconds. But I can say that because he's my dearest friend of the current ESPN Star team. So when you've got a very dear friend, you can get away with murder. Oh, by the way, the other thing I discovered with my growing up children was if you say you can get away with murder, they thought I was talking about Malika Sherawat. It's amazing how. I said, Papa? I said, no, I was talking of the more traditional meaning. And the reason I remembered this was because I saw my next point here, which said excellence is about desire. When I told that fielding story earlier on, I was playing for my university and I'd field at backward point, which is the area that has become far more glamorous these days after Jonty Rhodes and then Ricky Ponting and Yuvraj Singh started fielding there. And I would tell myself that I will not let a ball go past me. We had another player who had played for India schools, who was an excellent player, who'd field at cover. And we're losing a game, nothing's happening in the game, and after a while your shoulders drop. And you tell me, chal rahe, agle 15 minutes mein na ek bhi ball nahi chhodenge apan log. All the Hyderabadis giggled, right? And then that became a habit. And I said, look, come on, it's me versus the ball. And suddenly it made fielding a whole day exciting. Because every ball was me versus the ball. I said, okay, I'm not going to let the ball go past me. And that is desire. I wanted the ball to come to me. I always wanted the ball to come to me because I could then show that I was good at something. And I remember one of the games we were playing, a senior division game that we were playing, and there was this, I was feeling right on the boundary at long on. It can be much further than you think it is, especially if you played cricket on our IMA ground. And this ball was in the air for a very long time. It was curled. By the time I dropped the catch, I found the bowler, who later played for India, his name was Arshad Ayub. He had already taken his cap from the umpire and walked 5 yards away. And then he turned to me and said, "Chhod diye." I wanted the ball to come to me. And sometimes when you want things desperately, you can actually make them happen. There's no scientific explanation, but I think you just get lucky sometimes. I don't know what it is. And I sat there and said, hit one more to me, hit one more to me, every ball I'd say, hit one more to me. And that is the kind of desire that I think you must have. And that's why if you notice, I'm not giving any examples from my batting or my bowling. It's also about knowing everything that needs to be known about that profession. Everything that needs to be known. I'd stand there at backward point and I'd say, if the bowler is slow and this guy's on the back foot, it's going to come to my right. If the bowler is a little quicker, that means the batsman is a shade slower on the shot, it's going to go to my left. If he's on the front foot, then it's probably going to come off the chip. So and I spent ages just trying to figure that one out. And I found that when I got into television, I said, I will learn everything that is needed to be learned. Still make mistakes, but I'd like to think I make fewer. There's one thing I want to throw to all of you. Does excellence require luck? It's something I've debated myself a great deal. Does excellence require luck? Let's get some voices. No? When I was 21, 22 years old, and I had a debate with my mother who taught psychology, and I said, there is no such thing as luck. I said, if I work hard enough, I'll get my reward. If I bat well enough, I'll score runs. If I don't bat well enough, I won't score runs. There's no such thing as luck. And she said, yes, all studies have shown that is a typical 20, 21-year-old reaction. She said, when you're 45, you'll be exactly the opposite. And she told me how this was all about being internally driven and externally driven. And now that I'm closer to the age she talked about, sadly, my views are a bit different. But it's interesting, this whole debate about luck. What really is luck? So just sit back at home and my feeling is that luck is a combination of preparation and recognition. Sorry? It's preparation and recognition. Are you willing to slog your backside off when no one is watching? If you're going to slog your backside off when no one is watching, when that opportunity comes, you're ready for it? Also, which is even more important, you recognize the opportunity before it comes. Why are football strikers so great? I mean, if you watch football matches, you see these midfielders running up and down. You watch the defenders, the wings charging up and then trying to center the ball in. They've got to run all the way back to defend. What are the strikers doing? So what's the big deal about being a striker? Why is one striker better than the other? Why do some strikers get into a better position than others? It's because they recognize an opportunity before it comes. And because they've recognized the opportunity, they find themselves in the right position. They're not lucky. Ronaldo's not lucky. In love, he's very unlucky. But in football, he is not lucky. Gary Lineker was the forward I watched a lot in the 1986 Football World Cup. Was not lucky. He just happened to be in the right positions. And he happened to be in the right positions because he knew what the right position was. And that comes from a combination of preparation and recognition. One of my favorite sayings in sport comes from Gary Player, the golfer, who said, it's funny, he said in an interview, he said, it's funny, the harder I practice, the luckier I get. And it's true, the harder you practice, the luckier you get. And Lance Armstrong, who just won his 7th straight Tour de France, you must read Lance Armstrong's books. They're a little mushy, they're a little sugary. If you like Hindi movies, you'll love Lance Armstrong's books. But he said, I don't win the Tour de France on the 24th of July on the Champs-Élysées. He said, I win the Tour de France when I'm riding in the mountains when no one else wants to. I go out in the winter and I ride in those mountains when nobody else wants to. That is when I win the Tour de France. I don't win it on the 24th at the Champs-Élysées. That just happens. That's taken for granted. But I win it when no one else is racing. And that is something that stayed with me a lot. Are we willing to work? And so when the opportunity comes, we can take it. So that is my view on luck. When opportunity knocks on the door, use it. How many of you saw Robin Williams' fantastic performance in, what's the name of the movie where he plays the professor? Dead Poets Society. Carpe diem. Seize the moment. Pete Sampras was very good at seizing the day, at seizing the moment. Set point down, he produced an ace. That is why Sampras was different from Hewitt. Or that is why Sampras was different, essentially, from Tim Henman. Why is it that Tim Henman comes to a great position at Wimbledon every year and loses? Because when the moment comes, they can't raise their game. Excellence raises its game when the moment comes. I think excellence is more about humility, actually, even more than luck. Because unless you're humble, you'll never hang around, you'll never be willing to do what it takes for that opportunity to come. And the saddest thing about humility is that it's starting to become a cult virtue, which bothers me a little bit. And humility is something everyone should have. And some people say, wow, he's so humble, you know. As if to say, wow, he's got the latest Eminem CD. Yeah, wow, he's humble. Nonsense. Let me put you a couple of things about luck before I go on to my last couple of points. I think I've gone over, right? If you won't laugh at my jokes, I won't go over. I'll give you a couple of examples of luck and tell me whether they were luck or no. I was doing a program called Master Strokes on CNBC, where we had Saurav Ganguly as one of the panelists and Mr. Muthuraman, head of Tata Steel, as one of the panelists, and the topic came to luck. And the head of Tata Steel said, there is no such thing as luck when you're producing steel. Saurav Ganguly said, sir, but VVS Lakshman were 281 when we were down and gone and buried against Australia. If that is not luck, what is? Right? Was VVS Lakshman's 281 luck? Or was it a fantastic fusion of a person's talent and an opportunity spotted? You can have 2 points of view on that. My point of view on that would be a fantastic fusion. Not just luck. I mean, you need a certain amount. I mean, an edge can fall short. Science would prove that the edge was never meant to go to someone's hand, but we know that science is a funny way of working sometimes. But to my mind, that is a great combination of fusion, ability, and opportunity. But let me give you another example and tell me if that is luck. When we were all hoping to get into an IIM, straight after engineering college, or while we were still in engineering college, I got an interview letter from IIM Bangalore. And I found that there were 2 other boys, and you know how it is, the word spreads, you know, you got a call letter from IIM. You all gone through that. And on a campus, you know who's got a call letter, who hasn't. And then after a while, everyone started getting call letters from IIM Calcutta, and I didn't. So I was just sitting over dinner with my father and saying, you know, it's funny, there's a very high correlation between people who are getting IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore call letters and IIM Cal call letters. And I'm the only guy who's sort of, you know, must have done something really stupid. I'm the only guy who's sort of the odd man out. And he said, you know, maybe the letter hasn't reached. And I said, yeah, you know, fathers are fantastic at that, mothers are even better. And he said, okay, let me do one thing. I know where the interviews are held. Let me ask them if your name is in it. So I said, okay, they're held in the Administrative Staff College in Hyderabad. So he called up the librarian that he knew over there. The great benefit of being in Hyderabad is it's really a giant village. Everybody knows everybody else. So he called him up and he said, okay, when the professors from IIM Calcutta come, I'll ask them if his name is there. And he called that night and said, yeah, his name is there. I never got the letter. And then it went on. All my friends got reject letters from IIM Ahmedabad. And I got nothing. And I said, yeah, at least I must get a reject letter, you know. As Sidhu often tells me, it's no good being a dog lying in the street if no one notices you. And I didn't get a reject letter from IIM Ahmedabad. I got no letter at all. No letter at all from IIM Ahmedabad. And I told my father, you know what, I've got no letter from IIM Ahmedabad. Everyone's got rejects, some people have got interview calls, some people have got rejects, I've got nothing. He said, maybe you didn't get the letter. I said, yeah, and you know what, I told my father this in a very brave moment. I said, lightning always hits the same place. He said, what's the worst thing that will happen to you? You call up the hotel where the professors are staying, ask them if your name is in the interview list. He said, they're not going to be so cruel as to bang the phone down on you. The worst thing that will happen is they'll say, sorry, your name is not in it. Your name is not in it. So I called up, I discovered from somewhere that they were staying in a hotel just after Abbott's. And I called up and I said, can I speak to a professor from IIM Ahmedabad? And I only did it, believe me, because I was petrified of my dad. And my son isn't of me. And Professor N.R. Sheth picked up the phone at the other end. And he said, how can I help you? And I said, sir, this is what it is. I'm actually feeling quite embarrassed to call you, and I know lightning won't strike twice, but this is what happened with me at IIM Calcutta. And I was just wondering if my name was there, and maybe the postman liked my letter very much and kept it. I mean, I didn't use those words. I was not brave enough, but one of the things you learn in the media is never let the truth come in the way of a good story. But I spoke along those lines, and he said, okay. He said, I can't open the list because it's sealed. It can only be opened in the presence of all the other professors. But he said, tell me what you do. What are you doing? I said, I'm doing a final year of engineering, so I'm going through my final exams, and you know, my mind is more on this than on my exam, whatever. And he said, when are your exams on? And I said, day after, and whatever. He called me that night. He took down my telephone number and he called me that night and he said, your name is in the interview list. And he said, but you told me your interview is scheduled for day after tomorrow, but you told me you had an exam day after tomorrow, so I've rescheduled it for tomorrow. Is that luck? Or did I make my luck by calling? If I had sat back, I would not have known. So think about that. Was that luck? Or did I make my luck? Like hell, it was luck, man. I don't know. And you know what? I thought I might have written the entrance test all right. Anyway, so I just thought I'd leave two stories with you because I have this habit of leaving people with thoughts. I don't like speaking in front of people where people are listening quietly to everything I say and assuming it to be right. I'd love people to challenge thoughts when I'm speaking. Because I'm not an oracle and none of us are. I mean, when someone teaches you Boyle's law, you sit and listen, right? Because Boyle's law doesn't change. You can't challenge Boyle's law. You can't say PV is not constant. Because it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, what the hell? There's nothing you can do about it. It is. So you listen to your physics teacher. Or as in my case, a chemistry teacher, because I somehow found that Boyle's law seemed a little more palatable when my chemistry teacher was explaining than my physics teacher was doing it. Okay, I'll leave you with 3 or 4 thoughts, and then we'll decide how to take it from there. To me, excellence is also about having the confidence to share knowledge. If you've achieved a certain level and you don't want to share your knowledge with people, then it's a pretty pathetic level of excellence to achieve. But you'll find the really great people are willing to share their knowledge. Little leg spinner goes up to Shane Warne, and Shane Warne will teach him how to bowl the slider. He's not insecure that one day this guy will come and become better than me. One of the people I admire the most, he's a bit of an oddball, but he makes great advertising films. His name is Prahlad Kakkad. He makes great, very, very nice advertising films. His office is open to anybody who wants to come and learn ad filmmaking. And most people who are very successful in ad filmmaking today have learned from him and gone to set up their own ad film units. And I told him once, I said, doesn't it bother you that, I mean, you teach people and they go and make films and they might make the films that would have come to you? And he just smiled, he just laughed at me. And I said, what a great attitude. I'll train people, I don't care if they're going to take my films. He's not insecure. And I think excellence is not insecure. If you're willing to share your craft with people, because when knowledge comes, it doesn't come in a sealed envelope. That it comes only to you, as singing talent does. And my name was never on that address. The other thing about excellence is, some of us never know how good we are. Some of us think we're better than we are, a lot of us. And some of us have no idea how good we can be. And you'll find people who've achieved excellence have always been willing to stretch a little bit. They'll say, let me try and see what happens if I try that. What's the worst thing that will happen, to use my father's language? The worst thing that will happen is you'll fail. Are you scared of failure? If you're not scared of failure, you'll try it. And that is why batsmen, for example, are very good in the age 28 to 32. Traditionally, you find people say that batsmen are the best between 28 to 32, because by then they've stretched and succeeded or stretched and failed. And they know what they can do and what they cannot do. So I find knowing what I cannot do is very big for me. I know what I cannot do. Suppose I'm sitting in a commentary box with Wasim Akram and Irfan Pathan is bowling. I will not talk about how reverse swing is achieved, because that's what I cannot do. Similarly, Wasim Akram will not try and present a sports show. But all of us learn by trying. A wrong is always a stepping stone to a right. Failure is always the next step to success, the previous step to success, not the next. Excellence lives in the present. Sometimes we hold on too much to the past, or sometimes we're too anxious about the future, and we forget that we must maximize what we're doing now. So typically, if you're a PGP1, you've just come with a fantastic, most people have come with a fantastic academic record from wherever they've come, so they're like kings strutting around. And they're worried, what will happen in PGP? Will I get the right job? So how many PGP1s enjoy life here? Enjoy the present. Live in the present. Don't hold on to the past. Companies, individuals, organizations for whom the past is more glorious than the present will never succeed. There's a big debate on in Bombay at the moment. And I say Bombay because when you talk cricket, you talk Bombay cricket rather than Mumbai cricket, on why Bombay cricket's not doing well. And the whole debate has people who've shut their eyes. The reason Bombay is not doing well today is because they're living in the past. They talk about the glorious tradition of Bombay. But Subhash Gupta and Vijay Manjrekar and Polly Umbrigar and Sunil Gavaskar and Dilip Vengsarkar are not going to come and play for Bombay anymore. IMA could have fallen into that trap. IMA could have said, wow, we were a great institute in the 70s, we were path breakers, we were pioneers. Why is IMA still the #1 institute? Because IMA doesn't live in the past. Excellence doesn't live in the past. Excellence lives in the present, always. You cannot say, I did some fantastic programs 5 years ago, so I'm going to live off that. And I got this lesson delivered to me on my first few months of working in Rediffusion. We had one of our top managers was a big name in advertising, and there was a research manager, also pretty famous. And as part of our orientation, we all had to make presentations on the brands we were handling. So I was given Palmolive Shave Cream, and I had to present the Palmolive Shave Cream campaign to Rediffusion, as if I was presenting it to a client. And they taped that presentation and tell me whether I was doing it right or wrong. And that night, everybody was at the bar. I love going to the bar, by the way. If you don't drink, it's the best place in the world to go to. It's an awesome place, because everybody else, if everyone else drinks, then you must definitely go to the bar if you don't drink. Because you hear great stories in the bar when you are sober and the others are drunk. And both these senior managers were drunk, or as they say, delightfully high. You know? And one of them said, why didn't you make a presentation today to these young kids? He told the big boss, why didn't you make a presentation to these kids today? And he said, I've been 25 years in this profession. I don't have to prove myself to him anymore. And he said, don't you think instead of learning of your legend, he learned of your performance? If you performed in front of him and made a presentation, wouldn't he live with that for the rest of his life and say, wow, this man is great? Rather than saying, 20 people say this man is great, so he must be great. And I said, yeah, what a good thought. Yeah. Put it at the back of my mind. And I told myself, next time you go to the bar, don't drink and listen. And, just as a last story, it helped me a great deal when we were in the Sahara Cup once in 1996 in Toronto, the first Sahara Cup. It came soon after India had beaten Pakistan in that great World Cup game in Bangalore. And Pakistan got, sadly for them, a very, very bad reception when they went back. And we were in Toronto. The series was level 2-2. So we had to play the final on a Sunday. Some people said the series was meant to be 2-2, but in my innocence, I chose to disregard that. And it rained on the Sunday, so nothing for people to do, right? So everyone ventured towards the bar. The Indians went there because they thought they might see someone interesting. The Pakistan players went there because in their own country they can't go to a bar openly. It's fair call. So they were there, and here I was with my orange juice. And they all got chatting until suddenly one of the Pakistan players, the insecurity that comes out sometimes, and this has nothing to do with excellence, it's just a story I want to end with. He said, यार ये ऐसे नहीं हो सकता कि ये सीरीज 2-2 पे खत्म हो जाए, ना आपके घर में पत्थर पड़ेंगे ना हमारे. I just leave you with 4 lines. I know there's going to be a few questions. I hope I have no problem with time. You've waited longer than I have, so you might have a problem with time. I don't. I'll just leave you with 4 lines that my father, who was a great lover of Urdu poetry, told me once. He'd put 2 chairs outside. We lived in Hyderabad, not in Bombay, so you could put 2 chairs outside without being in someone else's house. Or, sadly these days, without being in a flood. And he talked to me about various things in life, And unlike my son, who sort of after 10 minutes starts fidgeting, it wasn't done in those days to fidget in front of your dad, yeah. And he told me these 4 great lines. And many years later, there was this Pakistani group called Junoon. And I was listening to Junoon because someone had told me you must listen to a song called Sayyoni. And I heard that, and I suddenly heard this other song. And I said, these are the 4 lines my dad told me. And it said, raise yourself to such a level that when God wants to grant you fortune, He asks you, what do you want? Can you raise yourself to a level where God asks, before granting you fortune, what do you want? It's a great state of mind to aspire to be. It says, खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे, बता तेरी रज़ा क्या है. Thanks a lot.